On January 22, 2026, the image that the Columbus community had been waiting for finally flickered onto screens across the country. The Ohio mugshot of Dr. Michael David McKee. In the photo, the 39-year-old vascular surgeon stares directly into the camera with a chilling, neutral expression. There is no remorse, no fear, only the cold, analytical gaze of a man trained to look at human life with clinical detachment. McKee has officially been extradited from Illinois to the Franklin County Correction Center, and for the first time since the early hours of December 30th, he is back on the soil where the blood of Spencer and Monique Tepe was spilled. For more true crime stories like this, hit the subscribe button. As McKee sits in a cell, the internet has begun to unearth the lost years of his life. A viral TikTok from a woman claiming to be McKee's ex-girlfriend has provided a haunting glimpse into his psyche. This woman dated McKee between late 2017 and 2018, immediately following his divorce from Monique. According to her account, McKee presented himself as a nice guy, someone who was book-smart and career-oriented. But beneath the surface, there was a profound emotional vacancy. She described him as having a wall-up, an inability to find a deep connection that eventually led her to end the relationship. This matches the testimony of his Chicago neighbor, who noted he was pleasant but always alone. This is the portrait of a high-functioning sociopath, a man who can navigate medical school, win spelling bees, and perform complex vascular surgeries, yet remains a complete stranger to everyone who enters his inner circle. The most disturbing detail from this ex-girlfriend's account involves how McKee framed his divorce from Monique. He allegedly told her that the divorce was a complete shock. In his version of the story, he came home from work one day to find the house empty. Monique was gone, the dog was gone, and her belongings had vanished. However, we know the legal reality. Monique filed for divorce citing incompatibility. Family members of the victims, including Spencer's brother-in-law, have pointed to a history of verbal abuse. This discrepancy suggests that McKee was wound collecting. In his mind, he wasn't a husband whose behavior drove his wife away. He was a victim of a sudden betrayal. It appears he carried this perceived wound for nearly a decade, allowing it to fester into the homicidal rage that allegedly exploded on December 30th. The legal wheels are now turning at full speed. Michael McKee is scheduled to be formally arraigned in a Columbus courtroom this Friday at 1 p.m. This is a pivotal moment in the Ohio judicial process, because he has been indicted by a grand jury on 5 felony counts, including aggravated murder with a silencer specification. This isn't just a procedural check-in. As retired Judge Fernan Rucker noted, this second arraignment in common pleas court is where the ball begins to roll. McKee will be assigned a permanent judge and a trial schedule. More importantly, this is where his defense team will likely enter a plea of not guilty. Despite the ballistics match, the video evidence, and the digital trail, McKee appears ready to fight. His Illinois public defender has signaled that he does not intend to confess. He is a surgeon used to having control, and he is now attempting to control the narrative of his own trial. For more true crime stories like this, hit the subscribe button. Columbus Police Chief Elaine Bryant has labeled this a targeted attack and an act of domestic violence. In the eyes of many, the term domestic violence usually implies an ongoing, active relationship. But in this case, the violence came from a ghost of the past. Why did Michael McKee wait nearly a decade to strike? As we look at the 24 most disturbing details, we must consider the decade of seething. Monique had moved on. She had married a successful dentist, Spencer Tepe, in 2020. They had 2 children, aged 1 and 4. They were living the life that McKee likely felt was stolen from him. As his own life in Las Vegas began to crumble under the weight of a malpractice lawsuit and an expired medical license, the contrast became unbearable. The indictment mentions a silencer, suppressor. This is one of the most damning pieces of evidence for the prosecution. Legally, the use of a silencer proves prior calculation and design. You don't use a silencer in a crime of passion. You use it in an execution. The fact that the 2 children and the family's golden doodle were left unharmed is not a sign of mercy. It is a sign of precision. McKee allegedly entered the home with the goal of eliminating his adult targets with surgical accuracy. He didn't want the noise to alert the children. He didn't want the dog to bark. He wanted to do his work and disappear back to Rockford before the sun came up. While the public sees a slam dunk case, legal experts like Judge Rucker warn that the defense will focus on procedural technicalities. They will likely challenge the search warrant of his Chicago penthouse. If they can prove that the ATF or Columbus police entered Suite 1205 without proper legal authority, the most critical piece of evidence, the 9mm murder weapon, could be thrown out. The defense will also likely attack the pigeon-toed gait identification. Can you really identify a man based on the way he walks in a blurry night vision video? In a court of law, beyond a reasonable doubt is a massive hurdle. The prosecution has a mountain of circumstantial evidence, but the defense will try to dismantle it stone by stone. As Friday's 1 p.m. arraignment approaches, Columbus remains on edge. Michael McKee, the National Merit Scholar, the Spelling Bee champion, and the vascular surgeon, is now just another inmate in the Franklin County system. The man who was always alone in his luxury Chicago high-rise is now surrounded by the very justice system he spent months trying to evade. The children of Spencer and Monique Tepe are safe with family, but they are starting a life without the two people who love them most. Meanwhile, the man accused of taking that love away is preparing his defense. The scalpel has been replaced by the gavel. For more true crime stories like this, hit the subscribe button. The nightmare began in the early morning hours of December 30th, 2025, in the Wineland Park neighborhood of Columbus, Ohio. Dr. Spencer Tepe, a well-respected local dentist, and his wife, Monique Tepe, were asleep in their second-floor bedroom. In a scene described by investigators as tactical and surgical, an intruder entered the home without any sign of forced entry. What followed was a horrific double homicide. Both Spencer and Monique were shot multiple times at close range. Perhaps the most haunting detail of the crime scene was what the killer left behind. The couple's two children, aged 1 and 4, were found physically unharmed in the home. They had spent several hours alone in the house with their deceased parents before a welfare check was conducted. Even the family's golden doodle remained untouched. The perpetrator had a singular, deadly focus. As Columbus Police Chief Elaine Bryant took to the podium, the community was gripped by fear. Who would target a young, successful family with such precision? The first major break came from neighborhood surveillance footage. A grainy video captured a hooded figure walking in the alleyway behind the Tepe residence between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. While the face was obscured, the figure had a highly distinctive pigeon-toed gait. This physiological signature became the primary lead. Detectives tracked this individual to a vehicle seen arriving just before the murders and fleeing shortly after. Through a massive digital noose of license plate readers, LPRs, and highway toll data, investigators realized this vehicle didn't belong to a local. It belonged to someone from out of state. The investigation led 300 miles west to Chicago and Rockford, Illinois. The registered owner of the vehicle was Dr. Michael David McKee, a 39-year-old vascular surgeon. The connection was immediate and chilling. McKee was Monique's ex-husband. The two had been married in 2015, but the relationship ended abruptly in 2017. While the divorce documents cited incompatibility, Spencer Tepe's family later revealed a history of verbal and emotional abuse that had driven Monique to flee the marriage years ago. Since the divorce, McKee had built a prestigious career, eventually settling into a luxury high-rise condo in Chicago's Lincoln Park neighborhood, known as the Pierre. To his neighbors, he was a pleasant but solitary man. To his colleagues at OSF St. Anthony Medical Center, he was a skilled specialist. But the digital evidence told a different story. The prosecution's case is built on a digital noose. Investigators utilized cell site location information, CSLI, to track McKee's phone pings from his ritzy Chicago condo, across the Indiana border, and directly into the heart of Columbus on the night of December 29th. EasyPass records confirmed his vehicle passed through multiple tolls, creating a time-stamped map of his 7-hour journey to commit the crime. On January 10, 2026, federal ATF agents converged on a Chick-fil-A in Rockford, Illinois. They didn't just arrest a doctor. They took down a man they believed had successfully played the role of a ghost for months. Following the arrest, authorities executed a search warrant on McKee's 12th floor penthouse. Inside, they found a collection of firearms. The most damning discovery came when forensic units ran a ballistics test using the National Integrated Ballistic Information Network, NIBIN. A preliminary match was found between one of the 9mm handguns in McKee's apartment and the shell casings recovered from the Tepe bedroom in Columbus. But the evidence didn't stop at the gun. Investigators also uncovered a firearm suppressor, silencer. This explained the eerie silence of the crime. The neighbors and the children heard nothing because the killer had prepared for an execution that wouldn't wake the house. As the media dug into McKee's past, a disturbing gap in his history emerged. In 2024 and 2025, McKee had been practicing in Las Vegas, where he was named in a major malpractice lawsuit. Rather than facing the legal challenge, McKee reportedly vanished. Process servers attempted to reach him 9 times, reporting that he would hide in his house and turn off the lights when they knocked. His own surgical group stated he had just disappeared and had provided them with a fake address. His Nevada medical license was allowed to expire in June 2025. This vanishing act painted a portrait of a man who was already decoupling from society and his professional ethics months before he allegedly drove to Ohio. On January 16, 2026, a Franklin County grand jury officially moved the case forward. McKee was indicted on 5 felony counts for counts of aggravated murder, including specifications for the use of a silencer or suppressor and prior calculation and design. 1 count of aggravated burglary, alleging that he broke into the home with the intent to kill, which opens the door for capital punishment, the death penalty, under Ohio law. At this stage in the series, Michael McKee was sitting in an Illinois jail, having just waived his right to an extradition hearing. The surgeon, the National Merit Scholar, and pleasant neighbor had been unmasked as a calculated suspect in a military-style execution. The story was no longer just about a murder. It was about a man who allegedly spent 8 years wound collecting, waiting for the perfect moment to execute his ex-wife and her new husband, while the world only saw a man in a white lab coat. Now, he returns to Ohio to face the families he destroyed. And as always, you've been watching True Crime Story Vault, where every story is told with facts, empathy, and respect for those who can no longer speak for themselves. For more true crime stories like this, hit the subscribe button and comment your thoughts below. Until next time, remember, the truth is never buried.